From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store.
Hi, everyone. Bill Rentschler in the 1011 Now streaming studio with Sports Director Kevin Sjuts for another edition of the REPORT Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Kevin, it is Purdue week. You're hitting the road on Friday, traveling to Purdue. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's pretty wild that it's taken this long to get on the road.
I know.
Late September, and you think about recent years in which Nebraska has often opened the season away from Lincoln, even one time in a different continent. So this is a late road opener for Nebraska, but they will play at Purdue Saturday with an 11 a.m. kickoff Central Time.
On Peacock. So get your subscriptions in order ahead of time. Players were talking about it yesterday on Tuesday. Kind of sounds like they're, excited to hit the road.
I thought you were going to say players were going to have a take on playing on Peacock.
No. I mean, they might, but I don't know what it is.
Just better have a good internet connection.
Yeah, that's right.
And we know when Nebraska did that for the first time last year, there were several unhappy customers in some of the rural sections of the fan base. Mm-hmm. But the numbers on the streaming service certainly went up.
Yes. NBC, I believe, was very happy. And it sounds like Fox, going back to Friday night game last week, was pretty happy. I think they said they had 4 million people tune in for that game on Fox. Again, say what you want for the Friday night games. At least Fox's slate so far this year, those Friday night games have been pretty good. You had Kansas State, I think Arizona the week before, Nebraska, Illinois last week. Pretty good games for them.
That's by far the best game Fox has had on Friday night so far.
Yes.
And for the sickos like myself that really like Friday football,
yes.
I mean, San Jose State played until about 2 a.m. and game went into double overtime. It was awesome.
It's good stuff. Kevin, I wanted to ask you, so again, we talked after the Illinois game. Do you feel like maybe the perception of this team has taken a little bit of a hit? First 2 games, teams that weren't necessarily trying to run the ball on you, but the last 2 games, I mean, Northern Iowa, they only scored 3 points, but they kind of ran the ball. And now Illinois, they came in and you knew they wanted to run the ball, and they kind of punched the Huskers in the mouth. The defense now kind of a little bit of a question mark. And so the Huskers kind of have to right the ship here as they go to Purdue. Devin Mockabee, I feel like, is a running back for Purdue that has killed Nebraska in the past couple years.
So are you asking me if my perception of the team has changed or has the fan base's perception?
Well, I know the fan base's has, but you are a more even-keeled thinker when it comes to these types of things. So, where are you at with this team? Because you're a quarter way through the season now. You're at the quarter-mile mark.
Yeah, and Nebraska only has 1 home game in the month of October.
Mm-hmm.
This is wild, and we're kind of chugging along. My answer to your question of has my opinion on the season changed is no. At the beginning of the year, Bill, a lot of folks said that there's going to be a loss in there that you're not expecting. Mm-hmm. And there were some people, measured people, some non-Kool-Aid drinkers that said 7-0, let's not be so quick to go there. It just became such a national story. And it's like what you hear is what you start to believe. And I feel like somewhere along, late August, early September, people started to get an inflated sense of what Nebraska football is. Is this a good team? Yes. I still think it's a good team. And what I saw for 3 full games in 3 quarters is not going to completely change my outlook on the entire season. Yeah, they had a bad possession at the end of regulation. I know that's when it matters most. And in the words of Matt Rule, overtime was a debacle. However, still a good football team.
I really like the way you phrased it after the game on Friday night, and that was growing pains. And that kind of, it goes back to what Rule said at the beginning of the year. They're learning how to play winning football. They want to play championship football. And they're growing pains to get there.
And I think beating UTEP and beating Colorado in the fashion in which Nebraska beat Colorado, and then holding Northern Iowa to just 3 points, some fans and those that follow Nebraska football started to forget the concept of growing pains. They thought that this team, because of some of the parts and pieces in the improved coaching, that Nebraska became immune to growing. No, especially not in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. And Matt Rule said that all along. And as a fan and a follower of the team, you can pick and choose what you want to hear, but that puts you in the state in which you start to get a little bit surprised by certain results. Matt Rule said that looking at the beginning portion of the schedule, you can't just be so quick to say it's 7-0 because there are good teams along the way. And so Nebraska right now is 3-1, and just to let everybody know, Indiana is undefeated, and they're one of the great stories in the Big Ten right now. And Rutgers at this moment is undefeated. They are two opponents that are in this first 7-game stretch. So Matt Rule threw out like a little bit of a disclaimer before prognosticating how Nebraska would do in the first half of the schedule. Mm-hmm. But I feel like some fans just didn't subscribe to that theory, or they just didn't want to hear it. Nebraska's still a good team. They have a veteran defense. They have playmakers on defense. They have a very talented freshman quarterback. But is he going to make mistakes? Yes. How many times has he been on the college stage and pressure, got to make a play situations? One time. And if you're not willing to forgive him for one time, I mean, that says more about you as the fan as opposed to the player that's on the field.
And you could make the argument he should have hit that made that throw in the end zone. Lindenmeyer, he was wide open, he was a little bit off of his back foot, but he still threw for 300 yards. Again, he had the one pick, which again was in Nayer's hands. He played a really good game. Yeah, we're going to talk about that interception tonight on 10-11 at 6. Because if you look at Dylan's 2 interceptions so far this season, Bill, they've been 50-50 balls. So it's less about Dylan and it's more about the receivers. Because he could have 0 interceptions on the season at this point in time. And through 3 games, that's pretty remarkable. I would say Satterfield sounded a little upset on Tuesday with his receivers.
I think that, having talked to the team this week, Bill, they're not happy. Like, they're pretty upset about what happened. I would expect a pretty inspired team, a highly motivated team on Saturday against Purdue, and they have, the perfect opponent to come out and take out some of their frustrations, because I think Nebraska is much better than Purdue. Mm-hmm. I think Nebraska is going to be eager to right some of the wrongs, and I think the way Purdue is designed, the Huskers have an opportunity to really pin their ears back on defense, get after the quarterback when Hudson Carr is going to drop back and pass the football, and I really think that they're going to try to create some takeaways.
Yeah, and the defense.
And I think they'll have success in getting some takeaways. I guess I should finish my thought with that.
Yeah. You've seen it. Again, that John Bullock play, John Bullock, just as an aside, is having himself a whale of a season thus far. I would say probably arguably the top player on the defense. A chance to get it right, but Devin Mockabee, I feel like, again, he's just a big bruising running back, which, again, you see that all the time in the Big Ten. But I have nightmares of Devin Mockabee because he's ran kind of all over the Huskers the last couple of years.
Feels like he's been there a long time. I'm going to go back to that thought. You think John Bullock has been the best player on Nebraska's defense? I'm not disagreeing, but I'm trying to evaluate who else is in the discussion. Tommy Hill would be, but he hasn't been healthy, and as of right now, he's day-to-day. He might play against Purdue. He might not. So we're just going to exclude Tommy Hill from the discussion. John Bullock, I think, is 1. Ty Robinson and Nash have to be 2 and 3, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
MJ Sherman, I'd give a thought to as well, and Isaac Gifford.
Yeah, he kind of goes without saying. I'll be really curious again with Tommy Hill day to day. I thought Sierra Wright again played himself a whale of a game too. Once he came in for Tommy Hill, again he was a transfer from USC. We'll see how he plays against Purdue if he gets some more extended playing time, depending on Tommy Hill, because it's plantar fasciitis, wasn't that?
That just doesn't go away.
It can be a real nagging thing. You might need to wait for a bye week to try to get.
And it's really unfortunate for Tommy Hill because after he did such a terrific job defending Travis Hunter and Horn from Colorado, his name really went out there and even was being floated around on some NFL projections. But now he's a little bit banged up. I'm looking at the stats, Bill, because you mentioned John Bullock. 25 tackles through 4 games. He has 4 TFLs, 2 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 2 quarterback hurries. That would qualify as the most productive player on Nebraska's defense.
Yeah, by far and away. When he hits someone, they go down. And I feel like that's kind of been a problem in the last 2 weeks. And, I get they're trying to rip the ball out, but there's been a lot of trying to rip the ball out, and then you get leaky yardage. Tony White talked about the yards after contact. That's got to go way down.
Isaac Gifford, Mekhi Bayer, Deshaun Singleton, Tommy Hill. That's the ranking on Nebraska's tackles as of right now. The tackling was not great against Illinois. But I don't know that there's too much purpose behind continuing to unpack that Illinois game because the team really has moved on and lessons learned. And for those folks that are watching and listening and haven't watched MJ Sherman interview from Tuesday, go back and give it 5 to 10 minutes. It was absolutely excellent. Just a guy that was he had a lot to say without saying everything, and that's what I loved about MJ up in front of the press on Tuesday was he gave some good sound bites, but he didn't shame anybody, didn't call anybody out. But man, that's a guy that's pretty upset.
Yeah, I think the question was like, how do you guys feel? And he's like, how do you think we feel? We got punched in the mouth. Like let's get to work.
Yeah.
So.
And he also said if they were to go back and change everything just based on that one game, they would be frauds. And I thought that was such a brilliant comment because that's how Nebraska is approaching the 31-24 overtime loss to Illinois. They're not changing everything that they do. This is one loss they know. And it was a game that could have swung the other way. Nebraska just didn't make plays in crunch time. So they're sticking to the process. They're kind of doubling down. And it sounds like Bloody Tuesday was pretty intense.
And I know we want to move on from the Illinois loss, but I just want to bring this last point up. Because if you look at Nebraska's overtime record, the last overtime game they won was 2014 Iowa. I believe they have had 8 games since then, starting 2015 at Miami to last week Illinois. And they have negative yardage and no points in overtimes.
That's astounding.
That's really hard to do.
0 points in 8 games, 8 possessions. That's 8 empty possessions.
Starting at the 25.
When you have to score.
It's so astounding you almost just don't believe it.
Correct. When was what year was the Iowa overtime?
It was 2014. I believe that was Kenny Bell, corner of the end zone.
Yeah, that was right in front of me.
Yeah.
That was a good day. That was a fun day.
I think Bo Pelini got fired after that game, didn't he?
Yeah, Nebraska got to celebrate in Iowa City. It was quite the scene.
Yeah, it was.
Crazy times.
It was.
There's a few coaches that have been through the program since then. And, it's not like these overtimes have been complete clunkers. They've had opportunities. But this past Friday, that's pretty bad.
It hurt. So Purdue comes in. They're 1-2 on the year. They started off the year Indiana State, convincing 49-0 win. They've played 2 Power 4 teams since then. Notre Dame, they lost 66-7, and then they lost last week. They were out in Corvallis for a matchup against Oregon State, and they lost 38-21.
That's 2 pretty good opponents that they've played and lost to. Their head coach is Ryan Walters. I don't know if you remember that name.
Illinois defensive coordinator.
He was Illinois' defensive coordinator and really tight with Brett Bielema. So that is one thing to be concerned about if you're a Nebraska fan, because Brett Bielema just got to watch this Nebraska football team with the front row seat on Friday night.
They're probably talking.
And they are probably talking, yes.
Exchanging some notes. You mentioned him, but Hudson Card, he's their quarterback. He's the transfer from Texas. Devin Mockabee, their leading rusher, and then their leading receiver has 10 catches, 153 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the year. Huskers opened as like 9.5-point favorite. Current spread right now looks like it's 10. So the Huskers are favored by 2 scores, even going on the road. They give you, 4 points for being at home? So basically they're 2 touchdown favorites.
Yeah, I think that's about right. When I saw the initial line, I was surprised it wasn't more, to be completely frank. But yeah, Nebraska, this could be the get-right game. You know, if you're looking for the potential postscript to Nebraska at Purdue, it's an opportunity for Nebraska to right some wrongs, have an inspired effort, and try to get back in the win column. And then they'd be 4-1.
4-1's again. And 4-1's I would run away from West Lafayette.
But I will caution everybody. You know, as Matt Rule has said, it's the Big Ten. Every game's going to be a battle. He said that very passionately on Monday. These are battles. And if you look at the series between Nebraska and Purdue, it's not like the Huskers have just run away with victories over the Boilermakers over the years. They've given Nebraska some troubles. And what did I see, 5 of the last 7?
Really? It sounds right. I just remember, and I don't remember his name. I know he transferred to Texas A&M. The linebacker who played for Purdue last year.
Oh, he was all over the field last year.
And they hit hard last year. It was him and another linebacker, and I forget their names off the top of my head. But they hit Nebraska hard. They were flying all over the field. And, yeah, it's been a back-and-forth series for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not finding the notes regarding Nebraska and Purdue, but, because we read a lot. And reading for me sometimes is pretty hard. But Nebraska and Purdue, they've had some really great games over the years. 2019, let's go backwards. 2023, Nebraska won here in Lincoln over the Boilermakers 31-14. So that was Ryan Walters' first year there. And then the previous two games in 2022 and 2021, Nebraska lost both of those contests.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those.
They've lost 3 of the last 5 to Purdue.
Yeah. Yeah. One of those was, I want to say, was it a Riker 5 game, or am I going too far back?
That's 2016.
Oh, okay. Well, Purdue kind of haunts my memory sometimes, so 2016. It fits.
Because it was a team and a program that when Nebraska joined the Big Ten, everybody just assumed that Purdue would be the equivalent of the Baylor of old.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not.
Mm-hmm.
This is a program that, they have the cradle of quarterbacks, and people don't recognize that. That, this is the alma mater of Kyle Orton and Drew Brees, and they do have some success. And Joe Tiller used to be their coach, and they would go to bowl games. They haven't been the pushover that I think a lot of Nebraska fans expected them to be when the Huskers joined the conference.
And going back to your point earlier, but you got Rutgers and Indiana after this, so like you said, it's a get-right game, and you got to get right because Rutgers and Indiana both have looked really good so far this year. They're both in the receiving votes range right now, which, again, the Huskers still are, again, after falling out of the top 25. But
two
really good teams.
For Purdue, a Purdue win would be the Boilermakers' 5th over Nebraska in the last 7 meetings.
Ugh. Don't like that.
Does that surprise you?
It does surprise me.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I bet
because in Nebraska's eyes, this has always been a
lower-tier program.
Winnable game.
Yeah. I bet if you went down a lot of the, teams in the Big Ten.
For the folks who didn't get that, just search Purdue, winnable game, Frost on social media.
Yeah. That one went over my head, but now I know what you're talking about. Okay. So that's football. We got to talk volleyball, though, because last week was really impressive. 2 sweeps over top 5 teams. Stanford at home, and then at Louisville at the KFC Yum Center. Huskers now 10-1 out of the non-conference, ranked number 2, and getting into the real meat of their schedule. But they're hosting a couple California teams this weekend.
The only reason Nebraska is not number 1 is because of Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
Pitt is undefeated, and they have yet to lose a set this season.
They're good.
They are pretty good. But if you watched Nebraska last week, you would say they're good.
They're pretty good.
Sweeping Stanford, sweeping Louisville on the road. Those are very impressive wins, and this team is playing with a lot of confidence right now. But now can they withstand the duration of the Big Ten? This is interesting, though, Bill. John Cook has always said winning the Big Ten is harder to do than winning a national championship. To win the national championship, you have to win 6 matches in a 3-week stretch. This is a 2-month grind, and it's a 20-game season. But in the old Big Ten, you played everybody twice. In the new Big Ten, they only have 3 teams that repeat.
Mm-hmm.
So scheduling certainly factors into every team's pursuit of a conference championship.
And so just looking at the top 25, again, obviously you have Nebraska at 2. Penn State, they're 10-1, they're number 4. Wisconsin's 6-3, they're number 7. Purdue, 9-2, they're number 10. Oregon now, part of the Big Ten, they're 8-1, they're number 11. You got Minnesota, 7-3, they're 16th. USC, they're 8-2, they're tied for 20th. So 6, 7, 8 of the top teams there in the top 25.
So this weekend, Nebraska plays UCLA and USC, 2 perennial powers in the sport of volleyball. USC, of course, has Allie Batenhorst, so her homecoming to the Devaney Center will be Sunday night, a 6:30 start here in Lincoln.
And Fridays at 7, both of those matches are going to be on the Big Ten Network, so you'll be able to watch those. Looking at the Huskers website here, they're both sold out, which is not surprising. Have we found out, Kevin, I have to ask, how John Cook got his black eye?
All he said, I mean, Do we really have to go to TikTok to find answers to such pressing questions now? Apparently we do.
We do.
A full story wasn't even really shared. There's a lot of laughter in the TikTok between Harper Murray and John Cook.
Yep.
And he said it's not easy being a Cowboy and a coach. So it's not like he said specifically he fell off a horse or he got kicked or he got hit or we maybe it took a ball. Like
Could have been.
he said it's not easy being a Cowboy and a coach. So we shouldn't be so quick to assume it was something Cowboy related in which he got a black eye. Maybe it happened in practice.
Could have been wearing his Cowboy hat at practice, and that kept him from seeing a ball.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But
So-
John Cook, yes, black eye, okay. Can we move on and get back to volleyball?
Yes, back to volleyball. I also wanted to throw out there and mention, because it sounds like Creighton has their highest ranking ever now. They're at 6th. So, again, that 5-set match against Creighton that we had earlier this season looking all the more impressive with how they've played.
And Creighton is one of the teams that has defeated USC. And Elliot Batenhorst has come back and played in Nebraska because USC came in early September and played in Omaha.
There we go.
It was a 4-set match.
Okay.
If you're trying to look at, comparisons. It doesn't always play out that way. It's kind of an easy thing to do as a fan, though. Well, if they beat them and we beat this team, and, you kind of connect all the dots.
We swept them, but they took 4 sets.
It's always different. There's, you never know who's healthy, who's having a good night, who's in, sometimes coming off a loss or coming off a win or coming off a certain performance can certainly affect the way you approach a game. Like Nebraska football. They're coming off a loss.
Yep, this is true.
They're going to be fired up to play on Saturday.
Wanted to ask you, though, again, John Cook had a couple high-profile transfers into the program after the end of last year, but really they've kind of settled into the same lineup that they've had last year. So, again, Taylor Landfair and Layla Blackwell, they've played and they've contributed a little bit here and there, but really, again, it's been running it back kind of how it was last year. What's your take?
Except Olivia Mauk,
Yeah, she's been in there.
which is incredible
Freshman.
because this is a freshman that signed with Nebraska when the Huskers had Lexi Rodriguez and Laney Choboy. So if there was one addition that Nebraska made in the offseason that you thought would possibly redshirt, I think everybody would probably say the easy money is on Olivia Mauk. But she's too good to keep her off the court. And she has proven that she's more than capable to excel at the college level. And we're going to run a story on Olivia coming up tonight at 6. You kind of put that on a tee for me.
Well, there we go. All right. Well, I didn't even mean to do that, and I did it. All right. Basketball notes. They're going to be getting ready here. I think it's early November is their first game. Sounds like Fred Hoiberg and the team again started practicing. Fred having a procedure to replace a pacemaker going back to, I think, 2005, he said, when condition that ended his NBA playing career. But as far as basketball goes, starting to get practice getting going here.
Yeah, Fred had an aortic aneurysm in 2005. He had a pacemaker put in. 10 years later, they have about a lifespan of about 10 years. But the technology in which all that stuff is monitored is very, very advanced and has improved greatly over the years. If you want the details of that, we have the interview posted at 1011now.com. So this is just general maintenance for Fred. He's going to get a new pacemaker installed on Friday. He's not expecting to miss any time. He, in fact, is going to be at practice in the morning with his team.
He will have grumpy, though.
Well, because he can't eat.
Yeah.
Liquids only in the morning, and then he's going to go have the procedure. And he did he say he's going to be at practice Saturday? Or is he going to take Saturday?
He's going
off?
to take the weekend, but then he'd be right back there Monday
That's right.
morning. I think
That's right.
It was.
I mean, what a tough guy.
I mean,
This is incredible
I would take a week
because this is a pretty serious. I mean, it's a heart condition.
Yeah.
You know what? His heart is with his team, and he loves coaching ball, and he really likes this team. It's got a lot of new faces on it, but he believes it can be just as good as last year. It's very odd being at practice and not seeing Casey, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was at the football game on Friday. He was shooting out of the T-shirt cannon. Jamie was upset he didn't get a T-shirt, but he caught a hot dog from.
Well, there's 86,000 people there, Bill, and over 85,000 people don't get a T-shirt.
I told him he needs to lower his expectations, but he got a hot dog from the hot dog gun.
Oh, nice.
The gentleman
Der Wiener Schlinger.
Yeah, Der Wiener Schlinger. The gentleman sitting behind us was kind enough to give him the hot dog.
Was it a good hot dog? Was it warm?
It was warm.
I've always wondered about the hot dogs that the guy shoots out into the fans.
It was warm. See, I felt bad, though, because the guy caught it. He then gave it to my 7-year-old.
Aw.
And Jamie had just finished a slice of Valentino's pizza, so he goes, "You can have it, Dad." I'm like, "Jamie, the guy behind us is, you got to take it." And so I was like, "I'll save it for you for later." So I put it in my pocket, and that kind of kept it warm. But then I had it later, and it was good. Had a pocket dog.
Red hot dogs at Memorial Stadium.
Back on football, though, Kevin, we got to talk about it. Who's our crew? Who's our crew this week?
Well, since it's on Peacock, it's a little bit different of a crew. On play-by-play will be Jack Collinsworth. The analyst will be Michael Robinson.
Okay.
Again, this game is going to be on Peacock, a streaming service that you must log in for. Hooray 2024.
Yes, hooray 2024. All right, Kevin. And then I wanted to ask you, what's the travel itinerary look like? So you're leaving Friday. Is it driving the whole way?
We're going to be live at 6 o'clock, baby.
Whew.
Barring any travel challenges.
Yes.
We're going to try to get our folks to see Ross-Ade Stadium on Friday's 6 o'clock newscast, and then get a sleep, and it's a morning kickoff. Nebraska's first 11 a.m. game of the season. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of sightseeing done around West Lafayette, Indiana. I do have family that's not too terribly far away, so hopefully I can possibly have Sunday brunch
There you go.
with some folks.
Keep the rain gear handy. There is a remnant hurricane that's going to be in the neck of Indiana's woods. Like, bring some rain.
You know what is crazy is I was looking at just the state of Indiana and football this weekend, because sometimes I'll see,
What's going on?
Yeah, what else is going on? Purdue's playing at home. Indiana is playing at home. Notre Dame is at home. The Colts are home on Sunday.
Hey.
And if you're going regional, the Chicago Bears are home on Sunday.
There you go.
So
Might have to think
there's
about
there's a lot of football happening in the basketball state.
Have you ever taken in a game in Notre Dame in South Bend?
I never have. I've been inside the station, been on campus. It's beautiful.
That's a bucket list item for me. Go see Touchdown Jesus and see a full crowd there. I always loved the picture of the Husker fans taking over Notre Dame Stadium back in 2001.
That's one of the iconic Nebraska fans are a different breed photos.
They are. All right, Kevin, appreciate your time as always. Appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching. Again, Kevin's going to have the Olivia Mauk story. And what was the other story tonight at 6?
Talking wide receivers.
Talking wide receivers. All right, so we'll have that at 6 and 10 in the end reports. Make sure you tune in for that. Till next time, folks, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you later.
You've been listening to the Report Husker Show, sponsored by Fat Dog's Convenience Store. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch the Report on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and download the 1011 Now app.